So I want to paint a picture for you guys, something that's been on my mind recently, and this is going to be more of a nostalgic kind of video talking about a forgotten time that is perhaps 20 years old at this point, sometime in the early 2000s, something that I found myself occupying a lot of time watching these things. And I guess I'm making this video as just to kind of reflect and to feel a little bit nostalgic at the moment, especially as the year comes to the close. You know, it just makes me reflect on everything from my life, from childhood to adolescence to adulthood to now. And, you know, I always kind of think about everything all at once towards the end of the year, which can be very depressing, but it can also be a comforting, nostalgic feeling. And also, I'm making this video because I am very curious if anybody else had a similar experience to me or did the same type of things, or if you were the same kind of weird that I was, or if I am just completely alone in all this, but I don't think that I am. I want to take you back to the early 2000s and try to explain to you what it was like to be a fan of anime back then. Okay, so in the early 2000s, you really only had kind of three direct accesses to anime. Crunchyroll did not exist. YouTube did not exist. You know, anime was not as prevalent, as popular, or in the mainstream as it is now. And so you had to acquire it in a couple of different ways. And so the first way was obviously through Toonami. So Toonami was, of course, the block on Cartoon Network that would air from about 4 p.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. and would air a variety of anime that was coming out at the time, most particularly and most popularly Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z was the cream of the crop. That was the top. That was the best of the best. That's what everybody watched. That's what everybody loved. That was the anime. And when you thought of anime, you thought of Dragon Ball Z. They did incorporate other shows as time went on. They incorporated Rurouni Kenshin, Outlaw Star, Tenchi Muyo, which, by the way, is still, to my knowledge, the only harem anime to air on TV, and it was on a kids network, and it's a show about a bunch of half-naked space babes that all want to bang one dude. Anyway, Ayeka was my girl. Another way to acquire anime was just from being able to find it out in the wild and be able to rent it or buy it. Now, at the time, anime was super, super expensive, especially if you were younger. So, for context, in the mid-2000s, I was about, you know, coming into my teenage years. 2003, you know, I was about 13, 14 years old. So that's kind of the dynamic I'm looking with here. So I didn't actually have, you know, money to go out and spend to buy these things. And sometimes you would find a VHS copy of an anime and it would cost like $30. And that's $30 in 2003 money, you know? So it was really hard to come by. Now, luckily, Blockbuster started to have a little anime section. I remember all they had was this little 4-foot section, kind of like tucked around the corner of the store. Like all the other aisles, you know, were full up. Like horror was full up and drama was full up and the kids section was full up. And they had this tiny little 4-foot little section that just had all of these anime VHS. And that's how I discovered a lot more of the adult anime, not hentai. Anyways, that was another way to discover it. Now, the third way to discover it was through the magic of the internet.
What the fuck is the internet?
And the internet in 2003 was very different than it is now. First of all, most households only had one computer. There was the computer room. So we didn't have our smartphones. We didn't have laptops. You know, there was like the computer room in the house, and that's the special room that you go into to use the computer. And you have computer time when you can, and that's it, right? And then some households had dial-up, so like you couldn't use the phone when you use the computer, but that kind of slowly started to go away as the 2000s kind of branched on. So at the time, you know, you had the computer room, and I remember every day after school, I would spend a little bit of time on the computer, and I would go onto it, and there'd be a couple of different things that I would do. Number one, remember, there's no social media. There's no like Facebook to check. There's no Twitter to check. There's none of that stuff. So what did you actually do on the computer? Well, immediately you would log on to AOL Instant Messenger and try to see if the girls that you had a crush on were currently online so that you could try to message them and horribly fail at flirting with them day after day, week after week, month after month. Meanwhile, she's already dating some other dude or banging some other dude, and then she doesn't care about you at all. But you would still try every single day to message her just to see if there'd be a little bit of a connection. But there usually wasn't. So the other thing that I would do is log on to a A sharing service. Okay, so back in the day, we also had these sharing services, these peer-to-peer sharing services that were mostly used to download music illegally. And then back then, also, you had to download music track by track, song by song, and you couldn't download whole discographies. And to download one song would probably take about an hour minimum. So you had to really know what you were looking for. Not that I would ever do that kind of stuff, because clearly I would never download anything like that, and not buy the official CD. CDs were also a thing. But the other thing I would download tons of on these sharing services, which Kazaa was one of the first ones, if anybody remembers Kazaa. And then it would kind of gravitate towards all the different ones like BearShare and like all of these things back in the day. But Kazaa was like the main, like first big one. Like Kazaa was what everybody had, all right, at least around my area. And so I would download these AMVs. And if you don't know what an AMV is, it basically stands for Anime Music Video. And this has become, its entire genre on YouTube at this point, or just online in general. And AMVs today are really, really advanced with tons of great editing techniques, and people can tell stories through the music itself and basically like relate it to scenes that are happening in the anime and basically create these like really moving and powerful music videos with the anime footage and like the storyline of the characters to match up with the lyrics of the song. And, they'll edit to the music and stuff. These are the good ones, by the way. There's a lot of people that just kind of throw a song over top a clip and then it just is not as good. And that's kind of more what it used to be, but it was a different time. It was a different era. We didn't really have editing software that's as good as the ones that we have now. But back in the day, there's all these different anime music videos that I would download. And the reason I bring this up also is because this was exposure to a lot of anime that you wouldn't have seen if you don't see it on Toonami, or you weren't able to find it out in the wild to buy or to rent somewhere on a VHS tape. A lot of anime clips you would see for the first time on the AMVs. And that would even include anime that you're already watching. For example, Dragon Ball Z during this time, wasn't complete on Toonami yet. So we were still getting like the Cell Saga or maybe into the Boo Saga, somewhere around there. And you would find these AMVs that would have clips of like Goku using the final Spirit Bomb on Kid Buu, or even clips of Dragon Ball GT, which was like this mysterious, strange, weird, different series. Like, what is Dragon Ball GT? I don't know. Goku's a kid, Super Saiyan 4. What the fuck is going on? Nobody fucking knew, but we saw it through AMVs. So I'm going to name some specific ones for you, and I wonder if you guys actually remember these specific AMVs. But I would watch these after school almost every single day. I would have like basically a playlist of them. And little 13-year-old me would just sit there and watch through them. And I can't really explain to you why, other than they just gave me this sense of fulfillment or pleasure or motivation. I don't know how to describe it, but there was something about watching anime characters do a lot of incredible things and overcome obstacles and get stronger and have these fight scenes over top of music that was full of adrenaline and excitement. And also, I have to mention, there's no way I can make this video without mentioning it, just how many AMVs at the time were done to Linkin Park songs. And I need to really kind of paint this picture here about Linkin Park in the early 2000s. Linkin Park, regardless of how you feel about them, some people like them, some people don't, but they were truly the voice of that generation. I think every millennial, at least in some capacity, likes Linkin Park, or at least understands or recognizes their significance. All right. I shit you not. Linkin Park basically took the world by storm. Chester Bennington is the voice of my generation. And Linkin Park's not even like my top favorite bands or anything like that, but you have to recognize how impactful they were to everybody. When Meteora came out, their second album, everybody in school had it. You would see everybody in the hallways walking around with their CD players. You know, if you had the anti-skip, you were the really cool kid. You would see everybody walking around with their CD players, and everybody, regardless of what kind of group or clique that you were into, whether you were a preppy kid or whether you were a nerd like me or anybody else, everybody had Meteora. And the thing that was cool about Linkin Park too wasn't just the fact that their lyrics were very relatable if you were an angsty teen going through it and having difficulties in life, but also Linkin Park themselves were never shy about the fact that they themselves were nerds. They even featured Gundams in their music videos. They had a music video that was done completely in anime style with Breaking the Habit. They were fans of this stuff, and that helped it feel more relatable, and that helped it feel like maybe you weren't so insignificant, right? If these musicians that can create this art and this music and things that you enjoy, you know, are fans of the same thing that you are and are actually fans of it, then it just made you feel a little bit more comfortable with being a fan of that. And then when people started making AMVs, they would constantly use Linkin Park songs. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands of using the song In the End in an AMV. Paper Cut was used a lot. There was so many Linkin Park songs, so many Linkin Park Dragon Ball Z AMVs that I can't even begin to count it. Now, here's a difficulty with this video, and this is partly the reason why I decided to do this video on camera instead of writing a script, is because what I wanted to do in this video, what I would love to do, is show you guys actual clips of specific AMVs that I'm talking about and reflecting on. But YouTube is very, very particular about using music in a video, and it's going to get flagged and not monetized, and then it'll be hidden in the algorithm, and so like all of that stuff. So trying to put a clip of these things is just not going to be beneficial to anyone or anything. So I'm thinking about what I'm doing is linking down below in the description. I'm going to link as many of these AMVs that I can find so that you can go check them out individually. So check the links in the description for the AMVs. I'm going to try to link as many as I can. So yes, we got to hear one of our favorite bands, Linkin Park, and in a lot of these AMVs, especially with Dragon Ball Z. Also, Evanescence was used a lot, especially Bring Me to Life, which is like the most overplayed song of all time. It's a good song, but I used to work in a store and they would play this song on the overhead like 3 times every 30 minutes. And it just got to the point where I can't stand that song anymore. But I still think it's a good song. I just never want to listen to it again. But getting back to what I was saying earlier in the video, these AMVs would showcase a lot of images from anime that I had never seen. I remember one that I downloaded was to the song Dead Bodies Everywhere by Korn. And it was a AMV that was a compilation of some of the goriest, most violent moments in a bunch of adult anime that existed at the time. They even included images from the Spawn animated series, which isn't anime, but has a lot of violent moments. By the way, I just reviewed that a couple weeks ago. You should watch that. But it included clips from Akira, I think Genocyber, Ninja Scroll. Like it would include like all of these extremely violent, ridiculous, gory clips. And my brain just exploded with the potential of what could be out there that I could be watching. So it was this slow kind of like unraveling of anime where it's like, yeah, you began with Pokemon, then you go to Dragon Ball Z, then you go to the Toonami, and then you go to Legend of the Overfiend. Now, with these AMVs, you would also be spoiling yourself to a lot of things that are upcoming. I remember AMVs of Rurouni Kenshin. I remember AMVs of Tenchi. I remember AMVs of Cowboy Bebop and all of these different shows. And I would just like download as many of these AMVs as I could. One of the most popular Dragon Ball Z AMVs is image of the Cell Games arc with Gohan fighting Cell to the song No Leaf Clover by Metallica. That was another one that many people saw. Many people saw that way before the Cell arc aired in America. And we got to basically see like the entire ending of the Cell arc, you know, years and years and years before it happened. But that was another really popular one. And, you know, overall, as I look back on these nostalgic memories, you know, I understand how much better things probably are now because everything is so much more accessible. Like, you don't have to wonder what these anime are and go years before you actually see them or get a chance to see them. You can pretty much look up anything and find anything. If it's not on a streaming service, you can probably find it somewhere else. You can probably find a copy, or you could probably just Google search it hard enough and be able to find it. And also, you wouldn't be using a sharing service that would, fill your family home computer up with viruses and porn ads. Sorry, Mom. But as I get older, I do get nostalgic for these simpler times in a simpler era. I get nostalgic for being a kid and watching VHS tapes. I get nostalgic for the early days of the internet and using AOL, Instant Messenger, and listening to Linkin Park and watching the AMVs and just having this comfort of, maybe it was a comfort of just knowing that, like, there's still so much potential in life. Like, there's still so much that can and will happen. Like, when you're 13, 14 years old, you're not really thinking of the future. And you're really just trying to get through the day. At least I was. I was just trying to get through school. I was trying to make sure I didn't get yelled at. I was trying to make sure that, I did enough of the stuff so that people wouldn't bitch, and then be able to do the things that I enjoyed, which was, this kind of stuff, which was watching anime, writing stories. I was drawing comics at the time. I was, just wanted to get into storytelling. And I think that's another reason why AMVs appealed to me, is because, a lot of them really did tell a story with their music video, where they would, the lyrics of the song made sense to what was going on, or they would do a character specific AMV and relate it, like Vegeta had a lot from DBZ, about his struggles and trying to overcome things. And, I was really, I guess, motivated by that stuff. I was inspired by that stuff. And at the time of being that young, there isn't this constant panic and bombardment of like, oh my God, am I going to be able to pay my bills this month? Am I going to be able to do this? How long can I sustain this effort? Back then, your schedule was decided for you. It's like, you got up at this time, you went to school at this time, you came home at this time. It's just like, like everything was so like structured and regimented for you, and there wasn't really that panic factor of needing to figure everything out yourself at that point in time. And I get nostalgic for that era, because like most things in life, you don't really appreciate it while it's there, because we're always so focused on the things that are giving us stress and the things that are bothering us at the time and the things that are upsetting us at the time, that sometimes it's hard to look around and see the good aspects of it, or to understand in the moment that this moment is going to be special. These memories are going to be special. But at the time, it's just day to day, whatever. It's only looking back that you realize that you'll never get that time again. So I think it's really important to appreciate those things. And I guess anybody that's growing up in this era now, appreciate what's happening now, because you don't know how different things are going to be in 20 years. So that's what I have to say. But anyways, if anybody else does remember the AMVs the way I do, or maybe downloaded them the same way I did, or I don't know, has similar memories, I'd be curious to know. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Probably the last video of the year before 2024. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting all year long. If you joined this year, if you subscribed this year, thank you guys. If you want to see, I have a lot of reviews of anime movies and other movies and manga and stuff. So check out the playlist tab. Like I try to organize everything on the channel in playlists. So just check out the playlist tab and go to what appeals to you and check that out. Otherwise, guys, thanks for being here. Like the video, comment, tell me your AMV memories, and I'll see you next year.